Clear Voices of Hope is a powerful collection of voices from For the Love of Cups Clear Pathways program dedicated to raising awareness about the realities of dense breast tissue and breast cancer. Through honest conversations and personal stories, we amplify the voices of women who have faced these challenges firsthand, sharing their journeys, fears, triumphs, and lessons learned along the way. Each episode brings you closer to the lived experiences of survivors, advocates, and caregivers, while also featuring leading experts in breast health and women's health. Together, we break down the barriers, provide vital education, and empower listeners to make informed decisions about their own breast health. Whether you're navigating your own diagnosis, supporting a loved one, or passionate about women's health equity, Clear Voices of Hope is your source for real stories, reliable information, and a supportive community. Join us as we shine a light on the path to early detection, better care, and hope for every woman. Welcome, everybody. I am so happy and honored and proud to be here with Leslie Ferris Yerger. She is the CEO and founder of My Density Matters. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that breast density is a passion of mine. It has been since I got diagnosed 12 years ago. And Leslie Ferris Yerger, I stumbled upon her website like many years ago. And I know we've both been doing this work for a long time, side by side, but had never actually crossed paths. And I cannot believe it actually took this long for us to connect, but I'm so glad we did. We found ourselves on the same advocacy committee that ended up going to Washington, D.C. together last week to do some work for the Early Breast Cancer Detection Coalition that we have both joined. And we can talk more about that at another point in time, and you can check my socials for all the details, and I'll definitely leave more information about that in the show notes and how you can support that work. But I really want to dive into conversation here with Leslie. She has so much experience in this arena of advocacy, but also as a survivor, much like myself. She started this work based on her own experience. And I really, really want you to tune in, open up your heart, and listen to what she has to say. It's a really incredible story and journey. And I think you're going to really be glad that you tuned in and stay here. I'm going to let Leslie introduce herself and how she came to this work, which I know is like a very long, open-ended question, but I'll first let you say hello and then introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into it.
Well, first of all, thank you, Lisa, so much for having me today. I'm honored to be on your podcast and to speak with you about the topic that we're both so incredibly passionate about, breast density. And so, yeah, again, Leslie Ferris Yerger, I'm CEO and founder of My Density Matters. And we empower women to find out their breast density and learn their additional screening options and advocate for themselves, because that's what we have to do. And honestly, I wish I had known that years and years ago, because about 7.5 years ago now, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, 2 months after an all-clear mammogram and ultrasound. And it was the absolute shock of my life. I had absolutely no idea that I had metastatic breast cancer. And of course, that a diagnosis like that changes everything. And so I don't want my story to become anyone else's story. And that's really just the basic gut reason why I do what I do, why I founded My Density Matters, and why I want this information to women everywhere so that they have the opportunity to, with knowledge, advocate for themselves if they have dense breasts, like I never got the chance to do.
Right. There's so many things I want to get into that I just have chills though, hearing you tell that story. And I know your story, and yet it's unbelievable to hear and chilling, quite literally, to hear that 2 months after a clear mammogram, you're told you have stage 4. This is metastatic. This is supposedly incurable, right? I don't know what terminology is being used today, right? But you can be treated, right?
Yes.
But you
Treatable,
will be
but not
treated.
curable
Right.
is kind of what people say.
Right. So
Mhm.
you will be on treatment for the rest of your life.
Right.
And thank God you are still here to tell your story. Um, but how that happens 2 months after a clear mammogram, I'm curious what happened in those 2 months. Like how did you go from walking away to this appointment to finding this out?
Well, I was doing my normal, just yearly stuff, like you get your mammogram, you get a blood test, you go, you do your yearly physical, and I was just going along with the norm, really. Um, so I got the mammogram and they called me back and they said, we no issues, but we'd like you to come in for a screening ultrasound. So I said, okay, fine. So we did that. And then I got that phone call that said, all clear, see you next year. So then, a couple months later, I'm at my routine doctor's appointment, and the doctor said, you're newly menopausal, completely through that. So let's get a baseline bone density scan, DEXA scan. This is not something that we use for breast cancer screening. Some people think, oh, I should just get a DEXA scan then. No, that's not what DEXA scans are for. They are to, figure out your bone density. Because as we get older and we're postmenopausal, we can tend to lose bone mass. So if you don't have anything, to measure again, so you don't know if you've lost or not, if you measure later. So I thought, okay, well, that's a reasonable thing to do. So I went and got this very innocently. I went and got this bone density scan. And lo and behold, when the radiologist was reading that, saw some very strange suspect activity in the bones. And so this required further investigation. So then I got an x-ray. And she should have never said this, but the x-ray tech put her hand on my shoulder and said, does it hurt? And I was like, does what hurt?
Oh
Because
my
she could
God.
see what was going on in the x-ray, but I never saw the x-ray, right? So that was my first tip,
Oh,
that something was pretty amiss, but I didn't know what. So then they said, well, you've definitely got, problems in that x-ray. So then I got a CT scan. And the tech, never should have said this, said to me, I only have one bit of advice for you. Never met this person before, I've never seen him since. But he said to me, I recommend that you get a CD of your pictures today. So that way, next time, they'll be able to tell whether the mass has shrunk or grown. And I was like, do I have a mass? What mass? Where's the mass? How do you know I have a mass when I don't even know if I have a mass? Like, what is going on? But
and
I
why
thought,
would they be telling
oh
you
God,
that at that
that
moment?
was just a bad customer service thing. Like you just
Oh,
don't say that because and here's the interesting thing is I didn't have a mass, but
oh,
I thought after he said that he must know somehow that I do
right.
have one, but I never had one. So I mean, like, zip it, people. Like, don't say stuff like that.
That is horrific. I am
Yeah.
it's laughable but horrifying
It's
at the same
laughable, but I mean,
time.
I laugh now, but I'm like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah,
I
who
don't
says
know what.
that?
Yeah, it's the craziest thing ever. So then I got multiple myeloma tests because that's really what it looked like. It was like multiple, innumerable, they said, lesions in basically all my bones. So they thought it was multiple myeloma, which is basically bone cancer. And those turned out to be negative. So I got a bone biopsy. That big, um, that big hip bone.
Yeah.
Um, that's where they did it. And
Wow.
so that came back metastatic breast cancer. And then they told me what I had. And I said, how can this be?
Yeah.
Right? I just got a all clear mammogram and ultrasound. Well, sometimes they said cancer can be really small and still metastasize. So I thought, Hmm. Am I buying this? I don't know. I don't feel like things are right. I don't understand. Something's off. I don't get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm getting a second opinion, and I went to the Mayo Clinic.
Nice.
And first of all, they did a physical exam, and the doctor up there is the only one who's ever been able to feel it, but found it like in point 0.8 seconds. Said, "Oh yeah, right there it is." He felt it
In your breast.
in my breast.
Oh,
I couldn't
wow.
even feel it in my breast. It's lobular, so it doesn't form a big lump. If it was a big
Uh-huh.
lump or something, that hard lump, I probably would have been able to feel it. But it's not like that. It's just more of a thickening, and stuff that they're trained to feel that, we aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got the PET CT, and lo and behold, what do we see on the left breast? But a big thing. So
Wow.
not small at all.
Wow.
Um, but lobular is really famous for not being able to be visible on mammograms and ultrasound. And it's about 10 to 15% of the people who are diagnosed with breast cancer have lobular. And lobular, since it's not visible and doesn't form a lump, is more likely to be diagnosed de novo stage 4 like mine. So
Right.
that's how it all happened. But when I talked to the doctor up there, I said, "What in the world is going on?" Like I'm shocked and confused, almost to the point of speechless. And he said, "A mammogram can be like shining light in concrete, shining light through concrete in women with dense breasts." And I was like, so then I started to study dense breasts, and I figured out, hey, I'm not the only one here. This happens to a lot of people, and it's happening to way too many people. And nobody was talking about it back then, and nobody was doing anything about it. And I'm like, how is it that women are going through life not knowing about this? This is insane. And so my mission was born.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how long I would have. I didn't know how big it would get. I didn't know anything really, except
Mhm.
that I knew that I had to form an entity that could help me get this out into the public. And
Yeah.
so and so here we are about 4 years later.
Yeah.
And we have grown, but still a lot of people don't know. So there's a lot of work left to do.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my experience was very similar. It was, over 10 years ago though, and definitely I think Nancy, why am I drawing a blank? Nancy Capello was the only person talking about it then. Just her on her own out there trying to go state by state in the US to try and change some laws. And her big dream was to get that final bill passed for the federal mandate, which only became effective very, very recently. And so we see how slowly this information moves. And like you, I was really horrified to learn what I didn't know, especially when it came to dense breast tissue.
Yeah.
I've shared this before. My mom is a two-time survivor of breast cancer. And so when I got diagnosed, it wasn't a surprise to me. I figured I would get it at some point, but I had no idea the impact breast density would have on my diagnosis, and missing a diagnosis, not going back, not getting the right screening at the right time. And, that's another episode for another day, but there was so much to learn, and trying to get that information was hard. And it was like you, I felt like I'm the only person out here trying to find this information. Um, why don't we know this? Why isn't this common knowledge? Why aren't we having even more in-depth conversations with our doctors, even once we have been diagnosed, what this means as far as what kind of treatment we might want, um, etc. Right? So it doesn't end there. There's lots to factor into it. And much like you, I felt like I need to get this information into the hands of more women. I love that we need to change these laws, but that's slow. And as many people that will listen, I will talk to. And I also formed an entity just for that very reason. I needed something to be able to hold that information for me so that I could do that work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we both have formed, entities to do this. But a lot of other people have our story too, right? And they don't want to, aren't able to, yeah, many reasons, to not sort of form their own entity. But there's a lot of us out there that can work together to, you know, to come together to show that this affects a lot of people. And as you well know, about half of us have breast density. I think the actual study was from 40 to 74. About half of us have breast density. And that's the half that is at higher risk simply because of the density. And how crazy is that? You know, back when I was first diagnosed, they weren't talking about how breast density was a risk factor. It's just been in the last maybe 3 years
Yeah.
that that has come to light.
Right.
And so, but it makes sense if you consider
Mhm.
that 71% of the breast cancers that are diagnosed are in women with dense breasts. So
Yes.
that all checks, right?
Right.
So yeah, it is a big problem. This is an issue where I think we all need to take care of each other because,
Mhm.
as you have said, the system is slow to move and it's slow to act,
Mhm.
even with this FDA mandate that
Yeah.
took 10 years. Insanity. So we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And even with the mandates, and even if, say, we had our dream come true and insurance starts covering these extra screenings, without that sense of, I don't want to say urgency, but without that sense of awareness of how critical it is to go get that second screening, that adjunct screening, and to advocate for it, to make that appointment, you know, it's easy to let that slide, right? Without somebody
Absolutely.
telling you how critical it is to actually go back and make the time to do that.
Yeah, and you're right, and it's kind of a luxury to be able
Mhm.
to do that
Yeah.
because if we think about how hard it is to get, time off,
Mhm.
to be able to go get the mammogram to begin with,
Mhm.
and then if you get told you have dense breast, then you have to schedule and go back again. Some
Yeah.
people simply do not have that luxury. They
Right.
can't get off work. They can't get childcare. Transportation is a
Mhm.
huge issue.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
I know there are a few places out there that are scheduling, the mammogram and the additional back to back.
Mhm.
I mean, that's,
Very few.
very few.
Well, that is our
Very
dream. That's our vision, to get
I
everybody
know.
doing that.
Yeah, but, most places are not. It's
Yeah.
up to us. It's
Yeah.
up to the woman to push for that secondary screening and get it and schedule
Mhm.
it and fight the insurance company and all of this. Unfortunately, that's where we are.
That's where we are. That's
Yeah.
exactly where we are.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I know that that's filling those gaps in care, the ending those disparities, as I say, so that everybody can benefit from that early detection. Is the purpose of this message right here, that having you and I sit down and talk, creating this clear pathways program and advocacy, and everything that we do is finding ways to bridge those gaps and provide that accessibility, so that, like you said, nobody ends up being your story being somebody else's story. If we
Mhm.
can do everything we can to try to prevent that, that's what the goal is here.
Absolutely.
um I'd like to back up for a little bit, though, because I'm a little bit surprised that, talking about lobular cancer specifically, I think you know a lot more about that than I do. And I haven't really specifically shared that with my audience. It's not the kind of breast cancer I have, and haven't spent a lot of time talking about it. So I'm wondering if you're willing to share with us why that didn't show up on an ultrasound, and
Mhm.
maybe what what do you recommend, at this point for somebody? Because typically ultrasound is the recommendation, but how many women did you say are lobular?
It's 10 to 15%
Yeah,
of
yeah,
of the breast cancers out there are lobular. Well, I'll tell you what I know, and it's very high level, and I'm gonna declare myself not an
yeah,
expert on lobular.
yeah, all based on our experience,
Yeah,
everybody. I'll put that
yeah.
caveat out there,
So
right?
right. Lobular does not generally form a lump. We're taught, "Feel for the lump." We
Yeah,
think it's gonna be a lump, like a hard pea or something.
mhm,
And if it's, a ductal carcinoma or something like that, it probably would be
Mm-hmm.
some sort of round object
Yeah.
is hard
Yeah.
or semi-hard. Um, Lobular is sort of biologically different in that it doesn't form a hard lump. The cells more lightly connect to each other than a ductal would to form the lump.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of just in an area and creates a thickening, and it can
Mm-hmm.
have these like little, spiders, you know,
Mm-hmm.
tentacles on it.
Yeah.
So it's not a hard lump. And
Okay.
so, mammogram is really, they're looking for lumps.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they look for architectural distortions, and sometimes that's how they find lobular, but it's just harder to see because it's not a solid thing.
Yeah. So, okay. So does ultrasound almost always miss lobular, or do you think that they weren't necessarily looking in the right area? Because I know sometimes when you have dense breast tissue, they will take that ultrasound and they will look in that one recommended spot, but not necessarily do like the full breast,
Right.
which is
I got
another
a
important
screening
thing to ask
ultrasound.
for.
I got a screening ultrasound that last
Okay.
time. And
Okay.
so it just, it's looking for a lump too.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so if you have dense breast tissue, those lobular cancer cells are just kind of going to blend right in with the density.
Mm.
And so ultrasound is not really a good tool for, to find lobular.
Mm.
So ultrasound finds, depends on which study you want to talk about, but let's say
Mm-hmm.
2 to 4. 2 to 4 more cancers per 1,000 women with dense breasts than a mammogram will. But
Mm-hmm.
if you look at things like MRI or contrast enhanced mammography or molecular breast imaging, they'll find 3 times more. So many, many times more than the mammogram, but also quite a bit more than the ultrasound. Ultrasound kind of started getting used because it's easy to administer. There's no contrast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We can talk about contrast if you want, but there's no contrast. So that's a big plus to ultrasound. And
Yeah.
people had the equipment already, right?
Right.
So it wasn't a
Yeah.
huge investment. But something like an MRI or even a contrast enhanced or molecular breast imaging machine, those are investments. So I believe
Yeah.
this is why ultrasound got started for screening.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but it's not the most effective when you compare it to some of these other modalities with contrast.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so tell us a little bit about, where you're at today, what, your life is like, maybe a little bit about your treatment if you want to share that.
Sure.
And yeah, I'll stop there. I'll just share us a
So I'm
little bit about
so,
where you're at. Yeah.
so lucky because I'm still on what they call the first line of treatment, which is the
Hmm.
first treatment that we went on to
Wow.
when I was diagnosed. And that's very simple. It is letrozole, which is an aromatase inhibitor, which is basically an estrogen blocker. So
Hmm.
kaput, no estrogen, because my cancer is estrogen responsive.
Hmm.
Okay. And then Ibrance, which is now a standard of care for ER plus metastatic breast cancer.
Hmm.
And that's a Pfizer drug. And it falls into the CDK4/6 inhibitor category.
Okay.
It's a lot of people are on it now, but it was only a couple of years FDA approved when I started.
Wow.
But you'll see advertisements for it on TV.
Yeah. Yeah,
Why
you
we're
do.
why we're advertising Ibrance, I don't know, but anyway,
It's
you see it on
weird,
TV.
right? I wonder
Oh,
that myself all the time. Like,
so weird. It's standard of care. Everybody who needs it should be on it already. So it's not like, that anybody out on the street's going to call their doctor and say, "Hey, can I go on Ibrance?" No, that's for metastatic breast cancer people. You would never do it, right? I mean, that's crazy. Anyway, that's probably a whole nother story. But that's what I'm on. And then also, I took a shot for a long time called Xgeva, which is a drug that also people with osteoporosis can take for bone regrowth and to help rebuild bone. And I've stopped doing that because they kind of feel like whatever regrowth I was going to get, I've gotten after this amount of time. So that's what I do. And it has continued to work. I go get a PET CT every 6 months. And it always comes back that they don't see any activity.
That's remarkable.
And we don't know. I mean, I was talking to our mutual friend, Sally Wolf, about this, and kind of, she's kind of in the same position I am
Yeah.
with the drug and how long and everything. And no one really knows what the long-term effects are. Like, what if we went off? Like, what if our bodies could no longer tolerate this drug? What would we do? What would happen?
Right.
Like what would happen? Would it just not recur? I mean, has it killed the cancer? And we don't really know that. Would it come back with a vengeance? No one knows.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So because it's a new drug, it hasn't, like you
Yeah.
can't do long-term studies on something that's new.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And
So
it seems to be working, so
yeah,
you're going to
yeah,
keep using it, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I
Has
just
it
keep going
been
along.
typically this successful as far as its success rate goes? Because you and
No,
Sally seem like, it's working
we're on the
really
long
well.
end. We're on the long end. We're
Yeah.
outliers. The average time
Okay.
it works. Well, I mean, these statistics are funny though, because the average time it works is about 24 months. However, in that data is also for people who doesn't work at all.
Mm,
So you've got, a lot like people that are on it for 2 or 3 months and they're
yeah.
like, no, this isn't working. So they go off. And then
Okay.
there's people like Sally and I who are on it for years. So I don't know if that average really means much. I think it works well for people that it works well for.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
And
like.
it doesn't work for people it doesn't work for, so I don't unfortunately think that we know the difference between the two yet. Who's going to really react to it and do well and who's not? What are the characteristics of both of those people so
Yeah.
that we know better what to give people? Has
Yes.
all yet to come.
Yeah. Those are the magic questions. Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
Um, but anyway, so I just continue my life and I keep doing that. And it's really not too bad. It does take down the white cell count. So supposedly we're immunocompromised, but I'm telling you what, I don't get sick at all. I haven't been sick one time. I've had COVID twice, so is everybody else. And that's it. I don't get colds, I don't get infections, nothing like that. But I never did either, though. I never did have all those things. Even when I was much younger, when I didn't have breast cancer. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say except
No, it's wonderful.
knock on wood and keep going.
Yeah.
Um, and so, I spend almost every day working on my density matters to try to get the word out. That's
Hmm.
what I do. That's how I spend my time.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure at this point that I know how to not do that.
Right. Okay, you've given me chills so many times during this conversation because that is exactly how I feel. I tell people like I can't sleep at night if I know what I know and I don't do my best to share it.
Yeah.
Like I there's no way I could not do this. Like it just
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we are lifetime advocates. Like that's just
Yeah.
what we're going to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it's grown, it's gotten bigger, and now it's, the biggest problem that we have is managing the growth. And
Hmm.
so, that's always something to think about and figure out and manage. But yeah, that's what I do.
Mm.
That's
That's
what I do and why I do it.
it's powerful. It's wonderful. And no doubt you'll never even know how many women you've affected, right? And
Right.
that's kind of the beauty of the work that maybe we will never know how many people were
Right.
impacted, lives were saved, women felt
Right.
more empowered, more informed, more supported, you
Yeah.
name it, from every level of experience on this journey.
Yeah.
Um,
And we knew that though, right? We knew that we
mhm.
were never going to really know the impacts
Yeah, yeah,
because, when somebody hears your message tangentially through someone else, some other way,
yeah,
and then they go get what they need and something is found and it saves their life. That's circling back all the way back around to the work that we do every day is most likely not going to happen,
yeah,
right?
yep,
But we just have to know that it's out there.
right, exactly. Encourage those conversations. That's just it. You've got to have those conversations at your dinner table with your girlfriends. It's us taking care of you. Sorry, it's
Yeah.
us taking care of each other, making sure that we do get to those appointments, that we do get each other there, we watch each other's kids, or whatever we have to do to make sure
Right.
that we check in with each other and have these conversations and share this experience. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm grateful my mom shared her story with me. I would have had a very different outcome if she hadn't. And I know that a lot of people don't have that, or even if they do, sometimes their family just doesn't talk about these things. They don't
Right.
have conversations around this. They may have said,
Mhm.
oh, I had somebody in my family that had breast cancer, but we didn't talk about it. It was, in hushed tones, it's the C
Yeah,
word,
those
you
were
would
lady
whisper it.
troubles.
Hmm?
My parents' friends used to call those lady. She's got lady troubles.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, lady
Wow.
troubles.
Yes.
You know,
Oh,
that's
no,
ridiculous.
it's true.
Yeah.
I think that still exists out there too, right?
Oh, it sure does. And
Yeah.
it's different in each culture
Yeah.
sometimes. So yeah, there's a lot of nuances there.
Yeah, exactly. There really are. So,
Mhm.
we never know who's just tuning in, who doesn't have an opportunity to have those conversations or how to start them. So
That's
just
right.
start them. That's all I could say is just start having them.
Mhm.
Just have the awkward moment and start the conversation. Okay, I would love to know if you have a message or what you would recommend or what advice you would give to somebody who's just going in for that routine screening and doesn't know where to start or what to say or what to advocate for.
Definitely. The first thing that I would tell someone to do is to get that mammogram as soon as they can. Well, I'll back up a little bit, I guess, even from that, and say the ACR, American College of Radiology, now recommends that women 25 and older, especially those of who are Black or who are of Ashkenazi Jewish descent, but all women too, get a risk assessment, a breast cancer risk assessment. And we use a free one that's just online. That's the Tyrer-Cuzick model, which is the model that the ACR recommends. And take that risk assessment and see what score you get. Now, breast density is part of that calculation, but if you haven't had a mammogram, you're not going to know it. So you just, leave that blank and take your score. And if you're higher than 20%, you need to be going to your doctor and talking to him or her about your risk and what you need to be doing as a younger person to mitigate your chances, or to find it early. Um, Barring that, assuming that all, is a less than 20% outcome, which would not be considered high risk, is to get a mammogram as soon as you possibly can and find out your density. Now, we're supposed to be told whether we're dense or not, supposed to be getting a lay letter, all of that stuff. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't. Sometimes they come in the mail, sometimes they're on our portal, sometimes we read them, sometimes they get circular filed. Like, oh, okay. I say cut to the chase and go read your report online. Read the report. A lot of times it'll say, no mammographical evidence of cancer found. Don't stop reading then.
Thank you for that part. I could go on about the language. I have been
Don't
advocating
stop
for this since
reading.
day one. Yeah.
Right?
I want the
So,
first line to say, your mammogram is inconclusive.
right. If you
Right?
have dense breasts,
Right.
yes, it is.
Right.
But they're
That's all
not
I
going to
wanted
say
to
that.
say.
No, it does. It's not going to say, right? Because they say no medical evidence of cancer seen or something. But we need to read further. We need to find out what our density is, what the radiologist has to say about our breast density. And then sometimes at the bottom, they'll even put, due to breast density, additional screening recommended. Who reads at the bottom?
It's always at the
No
bottom.
one.
It's way too far down.
No one.
Yeah.
No one looks at the bottom. We have to look at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Is
It
even
used to even be on the back of the letter after they gave you nutritional recommendations for breast health. I've seen that before. Here's what you can eat to keep yourself well and healthy. Oh, by the way, on the back of this letter, After you eat your fruits and veggies, maybe go get an ultrasound. I don't know. It was so bad.
Yeah. So that's the first thing that I would say. Get the risk assessment if you're 25 and older. Follow up on that. Otherwise, when you can get your first mammogram, get it, read the whole report, find out your breast density. And if you are dense, then start to advocate for yourself for additional screening. Because as we know, somebody with extremely dense breast is 4 to 6 more times more likely to get breast cancer than somebody who has almost no density to start with.
Right.
So there's your risk,
Right.
right?
That's in
And also,
addition to it not being found.
oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's the risk, and there's a 50% chance it's not going to be found anyway.
Yeah.
Those aren't good odds,
No.
right? So let's find out if you are in that category, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe even slightly less in that category, like somebody who's heterogeneously dense, right?
Right.
And start to take action and advocate for yourself. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And if you are getting what's the word I want to use? Patronized
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or dismissed,
Mm-hmm.
time to look around.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not something to be dismissed about. There's
Exactly.
somebody who will give you what you need. You just have to find them.
Yeah. You'll just have to keep asking till you get
Yeah.
the answer you want. That's
Right.
absolutely the
You
truth.
know your body best.
Yeah.
And no one's going to take care of your body like you are going to and should.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I'm so grateful for you. I could spend so much time with you. We'll probably have to have another conversation another day, just to check in with each other and, share what you're up to. But before we close today, I would just love if there's anything else you feel compelled to share. And then absolutely tell us a little bit about what My Density Matters is doing today and, how people can find you and all those good things.
At My Density Matters, we try to keep it simple.
Mhm.
Just 1 or 2 messages, a simple message, and not really a simple, but maybe a single task to do. Otherwise, it gets
Mhm.
too confusing and hard and all those things.
Mhm.
Um, so this summer we're doing a lot of planning and we're working on the website and we're gonna work on we're gonna do a pretty significant media launch
Mm.
in the fall. So we're doing
Mm.
a lot of work on that. So I'm not really ready to disclose what all is going to happen there. Um, but just follow us on social media and have us do a lunch and learn. We do lunch and learns all the time for
Mm.
organizations large and small.
Mm.
And when you find out what you need to know, share it with somebody else, share it with your friends, share it with
Mm.
your coworkers, share it with your family. Share it with your girlfriends, because this is how advocacy works and this is how grassroots movements work.
Yes.
So I never really understood what grassroots movement meant until I was really trying to remove some grass
Mm.
from a spot in my yard. I'm pulling up, and I'm like, there's all these little roots, and they were all meshed together,
Mm.
and I couldn't get all the roots out. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, ah, I
Mm.
get it now. We're trying to create the grassroots so that
Mhm.
you can't eliminate it no matter what you do. It's always
Mhm.
there, and it keeps growing back, right?
Mhm. It's a strong
Um,
network.
It's a strong network of roots,
Yeah.
fibers, and things that
Mhm.
grow.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, all right. Yeah, so that would
Yeah.
be what I would say. Look out for the fall. We have big things planned. And September, October is that time of year where
Yeah.
you got to rally. We've got to rally. It's
Mhm.
exhausting, but it's gonna be
Yes. Oh my goodness.
fun.
I love that. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. I'm glad to have someone like you doing it alongside me. I think the energy really just helps us stay inspired and motivated, and knowing that we're not alone in it. I know we've both got lots of support, but it's still nice to meet somebody who's been there since the day one in the trenches,
Definitely.
doing this type of work. And yeah, just really, really grateful to have you. Thank you so much for your time and for coming to share your story with us today. I'm really
Thank you
grateful.
so much for having me. Yeah, I'm happy to be on. Grateful that, I was able to spend this time with you and that we can work together for our common cause.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.